construction technology and some of knowledge that you obtain probably from your own research. So basically, this is the types of taking up item that can be divided under various subdivision. One is substructure, second is superstructure, finishes, services, and external work. So the category for substructure normally relate with groundwork, moving topsoil, excavation, earthwork, support, and we try to focus more on this substructure and superstructure. So what you can do is, if you're not sure how the item listed above look like, you may wanted to Google some of the images or some video in YouTube on how does the construction work above look like. So basically for groundwork, it is not just limited to these 3 items. So for instance, for substructure, it is not just limited to these 3 items, topsoil, excavation, and earthwork. It could be something like for basement or foundation pits, the exercise that you did in topic 1, if you remember, and trenches, and so on. And this is other several items you also need to focus on, especially finishes. You need to know how to measure wall finishes such as painting, plastering, floor finishes, and ceiling finishes. For services and external work, we might skip some of it. So for this question 1, you can try to sketch on your own at your own time, and you can just show me during our next class. You try to sketch in 3D view at least how does excavated topsoil looks like. If you know how to sketch them, that means you understand what is topsoil component. You might want to excavate trenching. So how does it look like in 3D view and so on. So this can be done individually. So let's see the picture here, or the plan view and section view of strip foundation. So what you need to do here is that I want you to refer to your SMM7. You can try it now. So before you do any taking off, you should at least identify a simple list first. You can think on your own. Hold on. So you might need to think of what is the simple list first for your uh, foundation work. So for instance, for a small building, so what component would you need to do to be able to construct this strip foundation? Of course, you need to have some kind of trenching before you fill all these components here. So trench is like a big drain, okay? So if I draw it in 3D view, so here where they pour the concrete, the strip foundation is quite long, unlike pad foundation, it's quite different. So in this case, I want you can use your SMM7, or you can think in your on your own or by doing a research. So you can look at the next video. So this video is available in LMS. So I give you 10 minutes to do this. So by looking at the video, you can know what is the step in constructing strip foundation. So if you manage to list some of it, you should be able to get this list. Okay. One could be the topsoil, excavating of the topsoil, and once you excavate, you can dispose the item probably on the site itself. Then you start to excavate foundation trenches. Then you need to dispose the excavated material. And after that, you need to compact the bottom of trenches, and you need to pour the concrete. Then next is all of these items. Try to analyze these 14 items. This is simply the list that involved when you want to quantify the item related to the foundation work. Okay. Now I'm going to explain each of the relevant item with your subtraction. So one important item, first you normally take off the topsoil. Let's say in this case you are dealing with 150 mm depth of strip foundation, depth of topsoil. So you need to remove this depth of topsoil first. Only after that you will excavate for the reduced level. Okay. So normally topsoil is the fertile soil. It is quite weak in supporting a lot. So normally topsoil is removed, and since it's a fertile soil, it can be preserved to be used for other purpose, probably for agriculture. Okay, so the topsoil is normally measured in meters square. So you need to view it from a top view. So as you can see here, it's measured in meters square. So if you look from the top view, so if you have this plan view of your substructure work, so you can see that you need to measure meter square of this. So you need to know what is the length and what is the width of the piece of land that you need to strip off. Okay. So excavation of topsoil normally measured in meter square. Okay. So but if you see the disposal, after you measure the quantity of the topsoil, you need to dispose it, and it start to measure in meter cube. So whatever the length times the width, you need to time with the thickness or height of the topsoil. So in this case, it say just now is 150 mm. So after you remove, if you see the list, after you remove the topsoil disposal, you start to excavate the trenches. Okay. So when you want to excavate the trench for your strip foundation, okay, so you need to identify what is the perimeter, okay, the length. So if you hear this, if you see here, this is the section view, okay. So you need to know what is the mean length, okay, what is the mean perimeter. Good here mean perimeter, okay, the average perimeter. So when you get the average perimeter, the length, you will time with the height, then you time with the width. So you get the volume of the excavation for trenches. Okay. Trenches, it means that you need to remove the soil, the amount of soil of this. So if I view it in 3D, it should be like that. Okay. So you need to remove all the soil here. Remove all the soil. So if you see from top view, okay, you need to remove, you need to remove all the soil there. Okay. So here is the component of the volume of the trenches that you need to remove. But top view is like this. Okay. Try to imagine that you need to remove that amount of trench soil. Okay. So how do you get the girth, okay, the perimeter of this red color here, okay? So you're given the internal perimeter of the trench length. So what do you do with that? We will do this together. Okay, try to show you. So before that, let's try to identify the unit of measurement first. So trench excavation should be measured in metric cube, meaning once you take off, you will need to dispose it as well. So disposal for trenching is also measured in meter cube. Okay. So the simplest way of finding trench length should be using the mean length. Okay. And the trench will also be the mean length of the concrete foundation. So foundation here later on also share the similar length for the particular trench. Okay. And the width of this trench, of course, similar with the width of the foundation. Okay. Mean here mean average. Okay. So let's try to identify how to find this mean length first. Right. So as you see here, this is your length and this is your breadth. Okay. So meaning that from that internal wall to another internal wall, it is 9,000 mm. Same goes to the breadth from this internal wall to the another internal wall is 4500, meaning your perimeter only stop there. But what you really want is the average perimeter, meaning between this cavity wall. Okay, meaning that what you need is the perimeter between this cavity wall. So let's start to make an example of dimension for each of these. Okay, so for instance, the internal wall width is to make it easier, it's 100. So your cavity gap would be 75. Okay, and how do we do this in a faster manner? So let's use the empty area here. So you know that your length is 9,000 and your breadth is 4500. So to get the perimeter, because it's in a square format, okay, so you need to times with 2 and you times this with 2. So you get 18,000 and this one you get 9,000. Then you just add these both. Okay, you will get 27000 mm. So what is meant by that, when you refer back to this, meaning the perimeter here, okay, is 27000. So what you really want is the main perimeter in the middle of this. Okay, so how do we find that? Let's calculate it again. So from 2700 just now, you need to add, okay, because it will expand. Okay, you need to add. So how do we do that? 4 times 2 times 100. Where do we get this? 4 mean corner, 2 mean the side, 100 mean thickness of internal wall. Right. So four corner mean one corner there, one corner there, another corner, and another corner. So four corner and two side. One side go here, one side go here, one side go here, one side go here. So meaning that this length will go two sides. One side here and another side here. So your length need to be expanded. Same goes to your breadth. It need to reach up to there. So let's calculate that. So with the 27000, you add with 4 times 2 times 100. So you will get 800. So you will get 27800, but that one only up to here. Okay, it is not yet the half of the cavity. So what you need to do is, as you know, we put the cavity 75 just now, so we need to add it again to 7 at 00 with another at 4 times 4 times 2. Sorry, let me make it that clear. 4 times 2. Now we put half because it is in the middle of the gap, so the gap is 75. So we need to calculate this. So perhaps this would be 300. Okay. Try to check my calculation as well. So it should be 2 at 100. So this should be your mean length, or you call it average length or average good. So everything is similar. Okay. So how do you put that in a dimension paper? You know that you already have your height. Okay. So 900 minus 150 topsoil, it would be 750, and you get the width 700, and you already get your mean length just now, which is 2 at 100. So what do you do with all these three dimensions? Okay. Let's try to work it out in the dimension paper. So I'm gonna draw the dimension paper here. So your dimension should be put in the second column, which is the mean girth just now. Then the width would be 700. So everything is now in meter. And your height of your trench should be 0.75. Then that is your excavation for trench. You need to check the code. It should be under D20. Okay. So try to check that in your SMF. Same goes to your disposal. It would be similar quantity, so you just copy it back there. or you are using the rules of grouping because it share the same quantity. Okay. Okay, let's define further what is trench excavation. Okay, when you want to state the description by using your SM7, you should identify what is the depth and the width. Okay, because in your drawing, perhaps you might have different types of trench depth and also different types of trench width. So what you need to do is it is necessary for you to measure it in separate manner, okay? So that you will know which types of trenches belong to each of its depth and its width, okay? So the trench excavated material disposal, as I mentioned earlier, should also be measured in cubic item. And it must also be measured separately if you do the taking off for the trench initially is separate. So going further, after you able to excavate the trenches, you take up that particular item. In reality, you should put the earthwork support. So earthwork support can be made up from wooden, okay, or timber. So if the types of soil is quite weak, you need to have a timber support on both sides of the trenches. So how does we measure that? It normally measure as superficial item. So you can refer in your SMM7. It is measured in meter square. So earthwork support does not have to be measured for excavation that has a less than 250 mm deep. But if it's more than this height, your soil need to have an earthwork support. So for instance, you have different type of trench width. So you also will identify that it will have a different types of description. Okay. So normally one type of description is to state that it is not exceeding 2 meter. So if you see the illustration, the first one here, the image, it says that the opposing faces is not exceeding 2 meter. So meaning the width is not exceeded 2 meter. But if you have something that has more than 2 meter but not exceeding to 4 meter, so you should choose this kind of description. So it still depends on your drawing and specification that was given to you for the measurement to take place. But if you have something that has more than 4 meter, you just choose or exceeding 4 meter. So you can refer to this code, try to check your SMM. So how about the disposal of the excavated material? So this one relate with the trench just now. Okay. So you should be certain how those excavated material is to be disposed. So normally if you put it on site, it is much cheaper, but sometimes if there's no area to place for that material, you might need to remove it offsite. So that would cost you more. The rate would be different. If you put it on site, it will be different price of disposal. Okay. So, but you need to be very careful to describe them accordingly, meaning which one will be placed on site, which one will be disposed of site. Okay, so you can check under disposal. Okay, I think it's still under the 20, but the unit of measurement, of course, you should be aware it is in cubic. Okay, it's either on or off site, but the on will be stated by the designer, such as architect or engineer. And sometimes you also will need to measure disposal of surface water and groundwater. But this item uh, will be measured in items because it is not easily quantifiable because it's a surface water. Once you do the excavation, of course, you need to filling them back after you have put the item there, like foundation is already poured, the brick wall in the substructure already constructed, then you need to fill back these trenches. Okay, so if you're filling for the outer top of topsoil, so on this part here, let me try to illustrate that for you. Okay, so this part is the filling for topsoil. Okay, do not get confused with the filling for trench. Meanwhile, filling for trenches should be another one. Okay, so let's just, oh, sorry for that, let's just illustrate it in a different color. Okay, so that is filling for trenches, and another one is another filling for trenches is the inner filling. Okay, of course you need to put back the uh, filling item so that you can close your trenches back. Okay, so the difference between filling for trenches outer and inner is that the green one is normally from imported hardcore material. Hardcore material can be made up from bricks or broken bricks or broken gravel mixed with soil. So it's a bit harder compared to the soil that has been excavated and put on site. Okay. So filling for inner filling normally a bit pricey. Okay, because this is imported hardcore material. But for the outer part is normally taken from the original soil that you have been excavated earlier. Okay, there's another filling here. If you see, filling to make up level under slab. So this is outer topsoil, but in order for you to make up for the concrete slab, you need to provide another stable component here. This is also made of hardcore filling. Okay, before you place your concrete slab. So there's if you count 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of filling to make up the level. So as I said earlier, you can obtain it from different sources, but in your description you have to specify where does it dispose, where does this filling made from. So hardcore or other filling to make level under concrete ground slab should also measure in cubic meter. This is the filling that I set underneath the concrete slab. So why is it important? Because it has a different prices. Okay, so normally filling hardcore under the concrete slab, you either state the thickness of either less than or greater than 250 mm. And sometime above the hardcore filling, you might want to put a blinding. Okay, blinding is made of cement mortar to make it a bit smoother. Okay.
Okay, for the surface treatment, so normally surface treatment is to do with compaction of the bottom of the excavation, okay, meaning that, for instance, here, when you finish excavation for the preparation of hardcore bed or concrete bed, at first you need to compact this bottom of excavation, okay. So normally using mechanical treatment, and after you finish compaction, only after that you will fill with the hardcore bed, and you will also need to compact it again so that the surface will be even. And when you place the plastic membrane sheet on top of the hardcore bed for damp proofing purposes, it will not puncture the plastic, because sometimes hardcore bed can be quite sharp as it made of a broken bricks and some other recycled material. And once you put the membrane, you will place the concrete bed, and also the surface of this concrete bed normally treated with using a power float. If you see or check in a Google, power float is a kind of a machine with a brushing fitting, and the brush will be rotated for the surface of this concrete to give a surface finishes. Okay? So normally compaction is under D20.13.2, or if the bottom of excavation, it will have a different code. One is compact bottom of excavation and another is to compact the filling. Okay, and normally it measure in meters square. So now we go to concrete foundation. Normally concrete foundation will be measured in cubic meter cube. So a lot of concrete item will be measured with meter cube. So normally you need to find, in this case this is a strip foundation, meaning it's continuously support this wall here. So it's a long type of foundation. So what you need to do is you need to find the perimeter, the average perimeter, similar like how you find the center line of your trench previously, the mean girth of the trench, because strip foundation should follow the width of the trench size. Okay, then you, after you find the length, the perimeter, you just time with the width and the height of your the height of your concrete foundation. Then you will get the cubic meter of your foundation. And also things to consider when you want to measure your concrete foundation is whether they will have a fabric reinforcement inside or they will have a rebars type of reinforcement bars. Fabric reinforcement normally sell in a roll or in sheet. Rebar will sell in length by length. Okay, so when you measure in your dimension paper, normally fabric reinforcement will be measured in meter square. You just need to find how many area just by stating the width in between of this steel fabric. Okay, and if you measure rebar, you need to measure it in meter. So you have to know how long is your reinforcement bar inside the concrete. And once you get the meter, the length, you sometimes need to multiply with a conversion, a standard conversion, to change it into ton instead. Okay, and when you measure the length of these rebars, you need to include for the bend and hooks. Sometimes the end of the reinforcement will have a hooks, or they call it a bend. Okay, and how to find these bends and hook? All you need to apply is this standard type of multiplication, 9 times the diameter of the bar. Sometimes the diameter is 12 mm, sometimes it is 8 mm, depend on the types of your rebars. And also, if you want to measure the length of your concrete, let's say it is in this beam. Okay, it's inside this length of reinforcement bar is in a beam. You need to identify what would be the concrete cover. Okay, concrete cover mean what is the gap and it does not touch the concrete. It is not extrude, meaning extrude is going out of the concrete. You will need some kind of cover, okay, like an allowance, how much you need to cover your reinforcement bar. So you need to deduct this length, okay. And sometime when foundation are reinforced, you will have to put a blinding mean certain thickness of cement mortar in the trench. Let me try to illustrate that. Let's say this is your trench. Sometime you pour your blinding first before you put the actual concrete foundation on top. Okay, this is to strengthen or stabilize this type of concrete. Okay, so you will measure this blinding as well. So if it is not shown on the drawing, you need to check the specifications stated by the architect or the engineer. Now we will not do this Kahoot because we are doing an online lecture, so we just go straight away to concrete ground bed. Okay, concrete ground bed or slab can also be measured in cubic item. Normally, how you describe it is not exceeding 150 mm. It can fall under this three category. So you need to check in a drawing what is the thickness of your ground bed or slab. And after you measure the concrete itself, you also need to give a surface treatment. So you need to measure the surface treatment in meter square. So you need to follow the area of your concrete slab. Okay, now we go to brickwork and blockwork in foundation. Okay, normally it will be measured separately. So this red color indicate the brickwork and this blue color indicate the blockwork. So we measure the brickwork and blockwork in meter square. Okay, meaning that you need to identify what is the height from where it sits, okay, to the DPC level. Okay, from that level to this level. So you need to find the height of this wall for both of it. Okay, then you need to time with the mean girth of either brick or blockwork. So you need to find the center line of blockwork, the average perimeter of blockwork, and also the average perimeter of brick. Then you time with the length that you measure, the height that you measure earlier. Then you will get your meter square of the wall. Other thing to consider here is these types of facing brick. If you see this yellow color, it is made up of facing brick. In reality, in construction, anything that exposed and seen by people, it should be made up of facing brick if it is not plastered. Okay, so facing brick is a bit expensive and it is used for aesthetic purposes. You can use this brick even without plastering the surface because the surface is already aesthetic. Meanwhile, for the brick that is not seen outside, meaning in this case is underneath, you can use the common brick, which is much cheaper. Since that initially you measure it as a whole, you consider that this height is most of it is common brick. That's why you need to do some adjustment. Okay, in your dimension paper you need to state it that this is the deduction of your passing brick and you need to add another amount of passing brick there. Normally the thickness will be measured from this ground level to the DPC level. So in standard, normally they time 3 times the thickness of passing brick, which normally follow the standard measurement of facing brick, okay, or the common brick. So the thickness of brick normally is 75. So all you do is just time with 75. Then you time with the center line of the brick again. Okay. Now we go to the improve membrane and also the improve cost. So the improve cost is for wall, meanwhile the improve membrane is for the concrete bed and in between the concrete bed and hardcore bed. Okay, so when you measure the damp-proof membrane, it should be measured in meters square, and when you describe it, it will be under J40 categories. Normally it will state the DPM thickness and it will stated in gauge. Okay, and for damp-proof cost, it will be described under F30 categories. Normally it's relevant to the thickness of the wall, whether it exceeding or not exceeding. And when you want to measure the improved membrane, you also need to consider the DPM at the abutment site. Okay, so this is connecting the DPC with the damp-proof membrane. So this site normally will be measured in linear meter. Okay, so you already done your exercise 2, okay, in the class. So if you have any question, you may email me or you can just discuss it in the next class. Okay, so in summary, you should be able to understand already what is the concept of taking off as part of what the QS roles do, and also you need to know what is the work involved with foundation work, and you have applied the taking off skill with the use of standard method of measurement. So that's all for your topic 3 part 1.